In this video, let's talk about how to generate a one variable or two variable data table. First, you got to understand what is a data table. It's a what if analysis tool that allows you to see the results of changing one or two parameters in a model. So what do we mean by that? So right over here, I am calculating my net income when I produce these cycles. Obviously, I'm going to generate some revenue. I have some variable expenses, fixed expenses, and revenue minus expenses is my net income. The question becomes, what if I produced 4,000 videos or cycles? So I could just type 4,000 and I could see the result. But then what if I only produce 2,000 and I could produce it in here or type it in here and see the result? But if I want to see the result with a lot of different values for units sold, it would be easier to create what's called a data table, where I can vary the number of units sold by 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, or whatever numbers you want, and I would be able to see the result to my net income. So basically, it's a way to automate our what if analysis if I want to change things. So just to understand the formulas, we're basically taking the units sold times the price, and that gives us our revenue. And then we have variable expenses. They change based on how many units we produce. So if we produce 3,000 units and the material cost is that, well, then the total cost is the number of units times the material cost. The manufacturing per unit, well, then we're going to take the 3,000 times 210, and that's called our variable cost because it varies based on how many units we produce. Fixed cost simply means those fees or things that we pay whether we produce 1 unit or 3,000 units. We still have to pay our salaries, shipping, stocking, miscellaneous, and so that's our fixed cost. And then finally, we add up the variable and the fixed expenses right down here to get our total expenses, subtract that from our total revenue, and that gives us our net income. So now, how do we do one of these one variable data tables? So in this cell right over here, we have to list the number of units that we're interested in. So for instance, let's just say we start with 1,000, we go to 2,000. I will select that, drag it down. And so I want to see what happens to our revenue, expenses, and net income if the units were to be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And so right here, I'll just type units sold. So then what you have to do is point to your model. And what I mean by that is right here, we're going to say, hey, when we vary the units, I'm going to point to my revenue. I am going to equal and point to my expenses. And then right here, I'm going to equal and point to my net income. So those are the things that we want to watch happen or change when we vary our units sold. So then what we do is select that area right here. So we need to select our formulas and we need to select the variable. And then we go to the data ribbon under what if. Here is data table ... So it opens up another box and it's basically asking the input. So this is our input. Is it in a column or a row? And our input right here is in a column. And they want to know, well, where do you want me to put that input in your model? And so this is units sold. So this column of input is going to be substituted for that value right here. So our column input cell is going to substitute in our model for B5. So then when we hit OK, it fills in the data table and you'll see kind of a funky formula right here. Let's go ahead and format all of these as $signs. So we'll go home, $signs. We'll get rid of that decimals. One thing is, because this is called an array formula, it has those curly brackets, or if I double click here, you'll see it a little better. It has the curly brackets. The problem is you cannot delete a piece of an array formula. Let's say I want to just delete this. You can't. Or if I want to delete this, you can't. You have to select everything and start over. I can hit delete now, but I can't delete just a piece of it. It's all one formula. It's kind of like those spill arrays. where the formula is in one cell and it spills across all the other cells, well, you can't delete, you have to go to the original, and in this case, it's everything. So one more time, I'll recreate it. This is my selection. I will go to data, what if, and then the data table. And it's asking, well, my column of input, what cell am I going to substitute that for? And it's right here. And then it fills in that information. Now, this is a little not useful to see these numbers up here. So there's a way to do a custom format. So right here, we select that cell. We're going to do a custom format. And right here where it says type, you literally can type what you want that cell to say. So in quotes, we want it to say revenue. And then you close up the quotes and hit OK. Now what's interesting is it says revenue, but the formula bar is showing that it points to B25. And I could do the same thing here, go to custom format, and now this is the total expenses. So in quotes, I type the word expenses, quote, enter, and then right here, same thing, custom format. I will now run over here and put net income. I'm not going to do it in quotes just to double check that it has to be. Yeah, you got to put it in quotes or it won't let you play. So you put it in quotes and now you hit OK. And so there's your net income. Again, these are just custom formats. What you put in the cell doesn't change. So a one variable data table, we're varying one thing in our model. I happen to have chose units sold. We could have chose sales price per unit. We could maybe say, hey, I want to sell this from 900 up to 2,000. And what would happen? A two variable data table, just as it kind of sounds like, we're going to vary two things. So let's go ahead and vary the units sold again. And we will change the sales price. So I'll go ahead and type that up here. And so let's say the sales price can be anywhere from 1,000. And then we'll go to 1,200. I will go ahead and drag that across. So we're going to vary the sales price, this cell right here, from 1,000 to 1,800. And we'll vary the units sold, control copy, I'll just copy this over, from 1,000 to 10,000 again. Okay, now here's the thing with the two variable. With the one variable, I can say, hey, I want to see what happens to the revenue. I want to see what's happening to my expenses. I want to see what happens to net income. I can choose to watch one or more parameters of my model. With the two variable, you don't have that choice. There's only one thing we can look at. So you have to make that decision. And in this case, I'm going to look at our net income. So I'm going to point an equal point to our net income. And it's already got a custom format. So if I run over to custom, it already has the units sold. So that's why it says that rather than the 193,500. So very similar to the one variable in that you make this selection. You have to select the things that are varying, and then we run up to the data, what if analysis, data table. But this time we have two things varying. This row input cell, this is your row. What does that, where are we going to substitute these values in our model? Well, that's the sales price, so we click right here. Our column inputs, what cell are we going to substitute those values for? And that's this one. So the column input is our units sold. The row input is our sales price in our model. So you hit OK, and that's what it looks like. So it's already pre-formatted to show red for negative numbers. And so now you can kind of get a break-even analysis. At what price, how many units do we have to sell? If you sold this at 1,000, or if you produced 1,000 units, there is no price listed here where we break even. So you have to do a minimum of 2,000 units, and then we have to sell it for $1,600 bucks. So that's the beauty of a data tables. Another example commonly used for data tables, real quickly, is last week we were doing loan information. So let's say I have a car loan down payment, my interest rate, 4 years, 12 payments a year. Well, then what's the loan? 40 minus 10 is 30,000. This divided by the 12 payments per year gives me my periodic rate. 48, 4 times 12 is 48. The monthly payment. What's it cost to repay this $30,000 loan? Well, it's your payment times the number of payments you've made. So if you make that payment 48 times, it's $33,000. And then your total interest would be the difference between that and the principal. Okay, so one variable data table. What do you want to vary? I'm going to see what happens with different interest rates. So let's say we start with 3.5%, we go to 4.0%, and then right here I can fill this series down. By the way, you can also go 3.5%, and we've demonstrated this before on the home ribbon. I can fill a series. It's going to be in a column. The step value is going to be 0.05, and the stop value, let's just say it'll be 6%. In fact, I'm going to go just to be safe, I'm going to go 0.5%, then I don't have to worry about the zeros. So I hit OK, and that fills that in. I guess I could have went a little further in my fill series. So columns, 0.5%, 6.5, 7.5 is going to be our stop value, 7.5%. Hit OK. So that's fill series. One variable data table, we are varying the APR. I just noticed I have a label wrong. So this should be APR right here is what we're varying. There we go. Anyway, so then the next thing we need to do is what do we want to see change based on the thing that we're varying, the APR, annual percentage rate. So you have to make a choice. And so I'm going to go 0.2, our payment. How does the payment change with each interest rate? Maybe I'm interested in the total to repay the loan. So I will point to that in our model and equal. I want to see what happens with the total interest paid right there. So again, I'm pointing to 3 things. You could only do 1, you could do 2, you could do more. Now, if you want these to make sense, we can do that custom format again right here, where I will just type in quotes payment and then hit enter. And so now it says payment. I won't do, for the sake of length of time, the other 2. How do you do the one variable data table? Select your formulas and the thing that is changing, data, what if. Data table, this is in a column, and that column is going to be substituting for this value right there. So you hit OK, and now you can see, I'll go ahead and format this in dollars. You can see our payment plus the amount we repay the loan and the total interest we pay. So at 7.5% interest, we would pay $4,817 in total interest, whereas at 3.5%, it would be $2,000. So less than half if you could get your interest rate down to that level. One more time, 2 variable. Let's vary the APR and the length of the car loan. So I'm going to change this to APR by length. So here we go, APR, 3.5%. I will fill the series. Column, step value, 0.5%. Stop value, I don't know, let's go 12% and hit OK. Well, that was a lucky guess. So normally car loans can be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Let's go with that. So those are the years. Now, what can you can only watch one thing, right? The thing that's going to be impacted by these changes. So I will just point in this corner, equal. Let's take a look at our payment. How will our payment vary for these interest rates, those lengths of loans? Right here, I can custom format that, and we will just say in quotes, payment. And now we select that range. It has to be your formulas that you're pointing to and the things that you're varying. Data table, what if? This time it's a two variable, we're varying two things. This row is the length of our loan. So that is right here, number of years of the loan, 3, 4, or 5 years. The column right here, what is that? Where do we substitute these values? That's going to be our APR, annual percentage rate. So you hit OK, and there is your payment. You could go from at 12% for 3 years, almost $1,000 payment, all the way down to 3.5%, $545. So all about how many years of the loan and the interest rate. And one more time, let me emphasize, let's say I don't want this 12%, or even I'm like, oh, I should have only wanted 10%. So you come down here and try to hit delete. You can't do it because it's part of an array. It's part of a data table. So if that's the case, you have to select everything in your array, delete it, and then right here you'd come down and you would clear all on your home ribbon. And now we could redo the data table, but again, you can't delete part of a data table. So the row input is the years, the column input's the APR, you hit OK, and now you've recreated it. But that is it for data tables, 1 and 2 variable.